I received a request under one of my videos. Somebody wanted me to do a video on a substance called DIM. DIM stands for diindole methane. Basically, it's a compound that's created when you digest cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli or Brussels sprouts, I should say. The thing about broccoli and these cruciferous vegetables, they have several protective health compounds. Probably the most famous is sulforaphane, but there's another one called indole 3-carbinol. Indole 3-carbinol has been associated with the prevention of several types of cancer, including breast cancer in women, prostate cancer in men. And what happens with indole 3-carbinol is when you consume these cruciferous vegetables, as soon as the vegetables hit the stomach acid, indole 3-carbinol, a substance is kind of released from indole 3-carbinol. You can call it a byproduct, and the byproduct is diindole methane, which is basically indole 3-carbinol. I know this gets complicated. Indole 3-carbinol, which has added 2 methane groups, so it becomes what they call DIM. DIM is, again, it's made from this stuff called indole 3-carbinol, which itself is available as a separate supplement. DIM is thought to help reduce the carcinogenic effect of estrogen. Estrogen is surprising because of all the natural hormones in the body, the only one actually listed as a carcinogen is estrogen. But you have to be more specific about that. I'll get to that in a minute. But suffice to say, estrogen is the only known hormone in the body that can actually stimulate cancer, particularly in certain tissues like breast tissue, uterine tissue, and possibly there's some good evidence pointing to estrogen has a strong effect in promoting prostate cancer. Of course, estrogen has a different meaning, let's say, for bodybuilders and athletes. Higher estrogen levels are associated with increased subcutaneous fat or fat just under the skin. Possible side effects of high estrogen include gynecomastia or male breast formation. Usually happens when you take high doses of anabolic steroids. And so there's a big idea that estrogen is really bad, which isn't really true. I think I did a video about that. Estrogen has kind of 2 sides to it. It does a lot of good things in the body. I won't get into it here, but I've covered it in my Applied Metabolics newsletter and previous videos. But suffice to say that the main reason why DIM is used as a supplement is that it's used for estrogen control, and possibly as a side benefit, it might raise testosterone a little bit, and when that has to be discussed, which I will do in a minute. DIM may stimulate the production of the way it works on estrogen. As I said, there's kind of different forms of estrogen. There's one form called 16-hydroxy estrogen, which is, and there's one called 4-OH estrogen. Those 2 are considered the main carcinogenic forms of estrogen. If you want, you can call them the bad estrogens. There's another form of estrogen called 2-hydroxyestrone. This is a good form of estrogen because it imparts all the good health effects of estrogen, such as skin effects and good effects on blood lipids like cholesterol, high-density lipoprotein, etc. But it doesn't impart the carcinogenic effects, and this is where DIM comes in. DIM is capable of converting the negative 6-hydroxyestrogens into the 2-hydroxyestrones. So in other words, it converts the bad estrogens into the good estrogens, and by doing so, it reduces the risk of several types of cancer, as I said before, breast, uterine, and possibly prostate cancer. DIM can also inhibit aromatase. Now, aromatase is an enzyme that converts androgens such as testosterone into estrogen. When you prevent the conversion of estrogen into, when you prevent the conversion of androgens into estrogen, you get higher androgen or testosterone levels. Bodybuilders actually use drugs called aromatase inhibitors because some of the steroids they use are capable of being converted by estrogen, and they don't want to experience those estrogenic side effects, so they take drugs such as Arimidex and Femara and other drugs that will inhibit or blunt the effects of aromatase. DAM can do that naturally, but I hasten to add, and this is a common question, don't depend on DAM as a sole inhibitor of aromatase. It has a minor effect. It will inhibit it to a certain degree, but it's not enough. If you're taking, let's say, large doses of androgens or steroids, DAM is like throwing a pebble into the lake. It's not going to cause any significant decrease in estrogen. It will only do so under normal conditions where you're not using drugs that greatly stimulate estrogen production or stimulate the aromatase enzyme. Test tube and animal studies suggest that DAM supplements can help prevent the growth and spread of breast cancer cells. These are isolated studies in a test tube where they've exposed breast cancer cells to carcinogens, and the DAM prevented them from becoming cancer. It seems to work with the anti-cancer drug tamoxifen, which is an estrogen blocker. If you give DAM with tamoxifen, you will get better effect than if you take tamoxifen alone. But that's of course bodybuilders also use tamoxifen or it's the trade name Nolvadex to help control estrogen production. Nolvadex doesn't actually decrease estrogen production. All it does is kind of block the receptors from estrogen. So no matter how much estrogen you're producing, they can't interact with the cell receptors, so you have a kind of a decreased estrogen effect. Same with DAM, by the way. DAM does not reduce the production of estrogen. All it does is it helps to convert one negative form of estrogen into a beneficial form of estrogen, which has virtually no side effects. A year-long study published in 2017 in a breast cancer medical journal gave 130 women with breast cancer on tamoxifen therapy either a placebo or 150 milligrams of DAM twice a day. The DAM supplements resulted in a significantly improved ratio of two types of estrogen, 2-hydroxy and 16-hydroxy, as I said earlier. Greater amounts of 2-hydroxyestrogen are associated with, this is the good estrogen, 2-hydroxy. Greater amounts are associated with lower body fat and more muscle, higher quality collagen in the skin and joints. It'll actually reduce wrinkling and fine skin lines. Healthy bone density, because estrogen is needed to maintain bone mass. That's one of the reasons women get osteoporosis as they get older. It's a long-standing estrogen deficiency. And it also helps with estrogen is important for maintaining proper cholesterol levels. This has been shown mainly in animal models. I'm talking about DAM, but the product of DAM, 2-hydroxyestrogen, but it probably also exists in humans. A 30-day study in 19 postmenopausal women with early-stage breast cancer found that taking 108 milligrams of DAM per day resulted in beneficial changes in estrogen level. It turns out that DAM may help prevent the early stage of prostate cancer, which is called intraepithelial neoplasia, or PIN. This is something that occurs in just about every man if he lives longer. There's a medical adage that says every man that lives long enough gets prostate cancer. What they are saying is every man who lives long enough shows some degree of abnormal cells in the prostate that's considered precancerous, not necessarily cancer. It's precancerous, and the medical term for that is intraepithelial neoplasia. And it turns out that DAM helps to prevent that. So DAM can help prevent prostate cancer by preventing the earliest, let's say, changes in the prostate cells that lead to prostate cancer. Some other studies show that DAM supplements may stimulate fat breakdown and inhibit fat cell formation. In a study on mice on a high-fat diet, 23 milligrams of DAM per pound, or 50 milligrams per kilogram, significantly reduced the formation of new fat cells. Bodybuilders who use DAM to counteract the effects of testosterone supplementation, to prevent the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, can take up to 400 milligrams of supplemental DAM a day. But you should also be aware that taking too much Too much DIM will boost the activity of aromatase and thus increase estrogen. So in other words, you can say that DIM follows the science of what they call hormesis, meaning that a small, and this is also true with DIM. If you take too much, it'll work in reverse and actually damage and lower testosterone levels, but this has never been shown, and it seems to be a minor, not estrogen blocker, but you can more specifically form. Specifically, it converts 16-hydroxyestrogen. That's about it for DIM. If you want to have the best and most current supplements, science, hormonal therapy, exercise, WW, appliedmetabolics.com.